Here we go for another delicious episode of Beers and Beats. Today I have a very good friend of mine, Timothy Coghill, and we are going to go through an absolute banger of a song, Samsaruh's Beautiful Killer.
Beautiful killer. Bound to chains, I cling desperately.
Now, before we get into the song, we need to talk beers. So the beer for today is from another favourite brewery, Banks. And this beer is an East Coast IPA coming in at 6.9% called Jam Out with My Band. I thought it was appropriate. It had an appropriate name.
Yeah, we're in a band.
We're not, but sure. So, Timmy, let's talk beers. What do you like? Or more importantly, what don't you like?
I don't like sours. I hate sours.
I hate sours too.
It's not beer.
Yeah. I got absolutely roasted when I picked these up by the guy because he was like, I mean, I don't even know who you are if you don't like sours. And I was like, mate, it's not a beer.
Mate, these young hipsters with their sour palates.
I agree.
They are sour to my palate.
To your loins.
My loins have been soured.
I understand that loins can be soured, but if that's something that you don't like, then what do you like?
I'm glad you asked that question. Because I don't like talking about beers that I don't like.
Okay.
I have 2 words for you. 3 words.
2.5 words.
I have some words that I'd like to say right now. Belgian Trappist beers.
So
Belgian Trappist beers.
I mean, obviously, Belgium makes some of the biggest beers of all time. What's Trappist?
So back in, I think it's like, this is literally like 800 years ago, the Belgian monks were praying to the Lord and he gave them the idea to make beer.
The ultimate recipe.
Anyway, my absolute favorite beer in the whole world is a beer called Gulden Draak, which is made by Trappist monks. This is like hundreds of years old, this tradition. Mm-hmm. So they've been at it since, I'm pretty sure beer was invented by monks. Don't quote me on that.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
It sounds beautiful.
It sounds beautiful.
Sounds like the purest hearts made the purest substance.
That was beautiful. Well done.
Brothers together making beer. So delicious. Gulden Draak is like, it's the nectar of the gods. It's like notes of honey. I don't know if that's in there, but it tastes like the sweetest.
It's like caramel, honey, like malts.
Yes.
Heavy on the malts.
Yeah.
Very good.
But it is alcoholic.
I mean, it sounds amazing.
It's
it is
incredible.
Nothing like the beer that I have for today. But it sounds very, very good. Personally, in terms of European beers, not the biggest fan, which is why today we have an East Coast IPA. Now,
I love an IPA. I started on IPAs.
In terms of the coasts, obviously we have West Coast. This is the East. And then there's also the New England IPA, which is that's my favorite style of beer. So you can tell in terms of the level of haze, there's not really much going on at all. It's pretty, it looks like a, looks like a West Coast.
You can see the East Coast waters in there.
You can.
Very
Absolutely.
distinct, very, very distinct water we use in the East Coast.
But in terms of quality, I mean, Banks are very good. Very, very good. I mean, one of my favorite beers of all time is made by Banks, which I should talk about. Banks, if you're watching, which you totally should be, please, for the love of God, do another batch of Cake Eater at some point. I've been waiting for their beer called Cake Eater for months. And
Cake Eater.
But it's about this guy today, so cheers.
Cheers.
Okay.
Smells amazing.
Okay.
I'm getting tingles in my body.
That's good. See, the thing that Banks nails is the bitterness, like right at the end.
Dude, that's real good.
Oof. I mean, that's very good.
That's going to be gone soon.
100%. Lucky we have 500 cans. So I think in terms of beers, we're set. That's freaking delicious. Let's talk about this song. So a little bit of context for everyone. This song is 7 years old. This came out in 2017. Samsaruh is an Australian artist from Melbourne, and she's just amazing. I've been working with her since she was 15, and she's put out a lot of very, very good songs. This was fun.
It was as delicious as the beer.
This was so fun. So we wrote this song together. So there was yourself, Sammy, another friend of ours, Jordan McCoy, who's also an amazing producer in his own right, and myself. So we had a week of writing, I think 5 days in total, and we wrote a song a day. I think this was the second song that we wrote. And I mean, this song took a while to crack. I remember that. I remember kind of going through, particularly when we get to the bridge, it was a hard one to crack, but kind of going back in and pulling it up after 7 years, there's a lot to go through.
There's a lot of good stuff.
A lot of really good stuff. So as we sip this delicious beer, let's jump into the song. 7 years ago, Tim.
I know, it's weird.
It's weird. This was the second song that we wrote for Sam.
Yes.
And it was the second release also.
Yes, it was.
I think an interesting place to start is you rock up into a studio, you've got a brand new day, it's 9 a.m. What are you going to do? Are you going to try and come up with something in the moment? And as a producer, it's like it is your responsibility to create a vibe. Either whether or not you want to come up with something in the moment or have something prepared. In terms of this song, I remember we had Sam's Juno 106 set up there.
That's right.
And it was really funny because I remember doing some songwriting with her. I went over to her house and the Juno was just sitting in a case. And I said to her dad, I was like, whose is that? And he goes, oh, that's mine. He's like, oh no, he goes, oh, that piece of crap. I go, piece of crap? What do you mean? And he goes, yeah, I've been thinking about just like, chucking on the garage sale. And I was like, mate, I mean, I'll take it. Anyway, I shouldn't have said that because then he Googled it and he was like, oh wow, this thing's pretty good. Amazingly, ended up keeping it, brought it into the studio. And I remember getting set up for this day, and we just wrote Golden to Thrive the day before, which had set the week up for a big week because that was another great song.
Yeah, which if people haven't heard it, go and have a listen to that song.
We'll also chuck it in the description as well. So I remember the first thing that happened that day was I set up the Juno and played this little riff. Which
I remember thinking, I was like, it sounds like a superhero theme.
It does. Now that you say that, totally. I mean, to be fair, it's kind of a ridiculous riff. Like it's like like you got to go back to how it felt when there was no context of a song at all, and it was like this. We could easily pass on this and go down a different road, but for whatever reason. We definitely believed, and we kept it. And then we just kind of like started shaping the song around that riff essentially. And we ended up, George ended up bringing, the guitar in, which you hear at the start of the song, as like a unison part. But I think the interesting thing was how do you write a melody around that kind of riff? Like it's already its own melody. It's not. It's more of a hook rather than an actual progression.
Yeah.
But I mean, we got there. We definitely got there. So I think maybe what we do is, should we just go from the start, go to the end, and kind of go, top to bottom in terms of the session? It was mixed in Pro Tools, all that sort of stuff. And let's go from the top. One thing that I would love to just recommend, if you haven't heard this song, I'm going to put a link in the description to go and have a listen to it. So it's going to give you way more context in terms of what is kind of going on when we start to solo stuff. So 7 years later, let's go from the top of this song
Let's get into it, man.
And see what we've got. From the top, we've got guitar, and let's have a little bit of a listen in terms of what the intro is.
That's right.
All right, I'm going to stop there because there's a couple of things to talk about. This may, for the people that have a completely different personality to me, this may really annoy you doing the stop-start, but it's the only way that we're going to be able to get through this. So it starts off with this guitar, which George played. Which has got some kind of like...
That was the Pog, wasn't it? Like the octave,
it's the Pog and like a
synthy,
vibrato-y kind of vibe.
Yeah.
The other thing that we have here is we just have this like little sample, which is essentially the same. It's the same thing.
It was recorded from us in the studio.
Yeah, so we played it. We played it through the speakers, and we just put a 57 in front of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it just totally kind of worked. So. So there's obviously, some drums as well. I think, honestly, it feels like it may have been a little bit of a mistake or a happy accident that we just ended up going,
yeah,
that was
I think that was
cool.
like, maybe that was an early iteration. We had some drums in the intro.
Yeah.
And then I think you were kind of like,
we
were like, that's not going to work. But then you were like, that kind of sounds cool. For
yeah,
like
I think when you got them panned like separate, it's like, it just adds interest,
100%.
So let's just go from the top again.
Nice little intro.
Let's have a little listen.
Cut the air with your deathly breeze. Pollute our veins with your poison envies. Fool a child with your mind games. Hidden eclipse and treacherous kind.
It's a great verse.
Predict the foes and preach to a soul.
Cowbells of Destiny in there.
Rules get broken, don't take it to heart. Things don't work out because you stole. But you're beautiful.
All right, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to stop. So let's let's jump through some of this stuff. I reckon let's go with the drums.
Let's talk about
drums. So for those that don't know, Tim is an unbelievable drummer. So Tim played drums on this.
You won't believe how bad I am.
So I don't know if you guys can see up there, but up here we have, well, at this point, it was definitely a new edition.
Yes. Yeah, it was only...
Short SE30, which was just literally our way of paying homage to the great Kevin Parker of Tame Impala.
Yes.
Trying to get the drum sound from Currents, listening to that record being like, how?
Yeah.
How do you get that drum sound?
Yes. We went through a big deep dive there. I remember there's this video on YouTube where he's in the studio and the camera literally just pans relatively quickly past all the outboard gear, the big rack.
Yeah.
And we were like,
pause. Yeah, also Reddit was just blowing up and people were like, I think I know what it is. It's like, and then also the DBX 165, which, I mean,
yes,
you can't pair that.
Well, I remember like he had an SE, a Shure, so the piece of gear that is our main sound, I would say, is the Shure SE30, which was only made in like the 70s.
Yeah.
And like it was not a heralded item at all.
Yeah.
It's like 3 inputs that sums to a mono output.
That's right.
And then goes through its own compression.
I think it's I think it's mainly a limiter that is just absolutely freaking out.
Yeah.
That's why it sounds so good. It is. It's like
so excited to be here.
The absolute limit. So in terms of the drums, it's like, I think we were using your Rogers, were we?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. My 1969.
A delicious kit.
It's gorgeous. Shirley, her name is Shirley.
Actually, we also, I think Chris Mass used that kit for the first episode, the Matt Corby song that we did, First Things First, which is episode 1. If you haven't seen that episode, now you know the drum kit. It was Tim's.
It was beautiful.
It's just one of my favorite kits. Super simple. We've got 4 tracks because there's 3 channels, and then it all malts into a single.
We also got it modded, remember?
That's right.
We've got 3 ins, and then we got those three
outs
ins
as
modded
well.
to be individual outs.
Yeah, great. So let's have a little listen to these drums when they come in. I remember spending so much time, even though these drums sound super simple, the kick pattern felt like an eternity to get right.
Well,
Even though it's just so simple.
I think something that I like about working with you is that, like, Joel is like a feel-based producer, like very much, like this is probably yours to say, but like how it makes you want to move, how it makes you want to, like,
Totally.
What does it make you want to do in your body?
Yeah.
And I think that's been really cool for me because I can play some stuff.
Yeah.
It's also great because it's like when you have someone that you completely trust on the other side of the glass.
Yeah, totally.
When you're tracking something, it's just so much easier to get to.
And
where
I
you wanna go.
think these drums they felt amazing. So let's have a little listen to them.
So crispy, man. Thank you, Kevin.
So it's like it's very simple.
Yeah.
As it needs to be, because that, let's bring in the actual, bass elements again. Let's go bass and drums for a second and see how they kind of interact. Because we also chucked a sidechain on the bass just to, I don't know, just kind of help the drums.
There's a lot of good old LFO tool on a lot of those synths and the bass.
Let's bring in the guitar as well. So that's the building blocks of the song. So we would have chucked this on loop, and we would have been like, okay, let's come up with a verse.
Those hats.
It sounds good.
Hats just came in.
Sounds really, really good.
Came at
So
me.
then let's talk about Sammy. So Sammy, man, I remember walking into her house when she was 15, listening to her play some songs on acoustic and being like, she's amazing.
Yeah.
She's got such a big fan base now. Is such an amazing performer is so comfortable on stage.
Mate.
Like, you played with her for.
She's one of the best.
Yeah.
She's one of the best natural performers I've played
And
with.
I think the other thing that I think she's amazing at is lyrics. So she would bring in this little black book of just essentially poetry.
Yep.
Right? But there was no melodies, there was no nothing. And so I remember when we were working on this song, she didn't have all of the lyrics ready to go, but she had something that she could kind of go to. And I think a producer's version of that is maybe having a demo kind of that you've worked on outside hours that you can kind of present, an artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be like, hey, this might be something that you're vibing, it might not. That's totally cool. So she came in, and I mean, the lyrics really didn't take long. And I think we wrote this melody pretty quick. So let's have a little listen to how she sounds. I might just solo her for a second too.
Mindless thrills and saintly kills, cut the air
Nice
with
dirty
your
vocal chain.
deathly breeze, pollute our veins with your poison envies, fool the child with your mind games, hidden eclipse.
So really dark, really cool, great lyrics.
So I'm just getting distracted by this delicious beer.
It's good, right?
It's
But
like
Banks is killing it.
Getting some citrusy, some soft citrus, I'm going to
Hey,
say.
Peter, Banks, let's go. Also, I hate saying let's go. It's just.
I really like it. I've taken to it.
It's so done. So in terms of effects, let's take off some of these effects. So this is how Sam sounds dry.
Mindless thrills and saintly kills, cut the air with your deathly breeze.
So in terms of plugins, we're not going to spend too much time on this. A little bit of roll off, a little bit of mid range, bit of top end.
And yes, that was the Pro Tools inbuilt.
Oh, absolutely was. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a banger. It's a slight banger. There's better plugins, but it's a small banger. There's same deal, Avid DSR.
Yeah.
And then
Soft release.
1176.
Mindless thrills and saintly kills.
Getting a bit of reduction.
Cut the air with your deathly
And then
breeze.
LA2A just kind of smoothing it out.
Pollute our veins with your poison and...
But I think the vibe comes from the effects. So
Yes.
we have this guy, this Galaxy guy.
Mindless thrills and saintly kills.
This Galaxy guy.
Cut the air with your deathly...
Which is cool. It's a bit of like a spring going on. And then, oh man, I love this plugin.
This is your boy. You were obsessed with this plugin for like
It's the
ages.
best. It's so good. I keep forgetting about it. I need to chuck it back in my template. So this is Primal Tap.
Mindless thrills and saintly kills. Cut the air with your
It's just-
deathly breeze.
It's good dirt.
Pollute our veins.
That's what Sound Toys do very well. They get pretty good dirt.
They get real good dirt.
By the way, Sound Toys, can you please release more plugins?
That's a good point. Very good point.
Like, it's been so long.
Okay, so we printed the effects. We've just baked them in. So obviously, we weren't going to mix this song. The amazing Tony Buchan mixed this song. Absolutely killed it.
Let's go.
So very good. There we go again. So you want to make sure that you're giving the mixer options. Like he might not have these plugins. He may. But if you can, just print them in, bake them in, and then he can choose whether or not he wants to use the original or he wants to do his own kind of version. Have no
100%.
idea what he ended up doing.
I think that's a great lesson that we've learned over the years is like, just commit.
Yeah,
Just put it in there.
Totally. We'll come back to that because that committing is a huge.
I'll drink to that.
That is a huge point.
Cheers. Commit. To commitment.
To commitment. To committing.
To making it count.
To having too many choices in music production in 2024. So the other thing that we didn't talk about in terms of the drums is that we added this little guy,
Little Cymaticsy boy.
which is just like it's like a little sample,
Yeah.
which is like, I mean, that just sounds like an EDM banger,
Yeah.
which we weren't making. But in terms of, and then little off-beat guy, which is actually so crucial because without it, the whole groove just feels super stagnant.
I love combining organic with like sampled or live playing with other different samples and things.
Yeah.
And like we wrote, I remember we were on Machine a lot.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
MPC style.
Yeah, Native
for
Instruments, yeah.
a lot of that writing process, we were kind of just like getting a vibe. I was just kind of laying down some sort of loop, and then we kind of go from that, get on the synth,
Yeah.
and this was definitely similar in that way. I remember you put up that sound, and I was like, ooh,
Yeah,
that's
I don't know why. Again, it was just a feel thing, right? It's like if you think about it too much, you go, it's a sample from a library pack that is named something ridiculous, but it just worked. It worked for the song. So I think the last thing to kind of touch on
yes,
is the infamous cowbell.
ha! Whoa, let's party.
The Will Ferrell cowbell, which
Yes.
is this guy.
This is an homage,
So let's have a listen to him in context.
mate. This could be my life's greatest work. This could be it. I peaked.
The foes and preach to his soul.
But I think,
I love it.
like, if we listen to those drums isolated without the melody, it's kind of like Afro-Cuban.
Yeah, it kind of very taken.
Like it doesn't really. You could get sidetracked and go, well, that's not really going to work with modern synths and all that sort of stuff. But again, it was just a feel thing.
Thank you, jazz teachers.
And then I think there was just a little bit of just the good old classic 1176. Let's get into this chorus.
But you're a beautiful killer. Bound to chains, I cling desperately. Irredeemable sinner. Telling tales like an innocent beast. I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around. I feel it. But you're a beautiful killer. Stolen taste, but you're so shot.
All right.
Mate.
There's a bunch of stuff to go
What a
through
hook.
here. So I can't even remember how the chorus came together in terms of, I mean, that's a great thing about writing with, you know, great friends, right? Is that it's, you can really put yourself out there. And I remember us working on this chorus for a long time, especially the melody. And the thing that I really love about it is it launches, she goes down. If we just solo this melody for a second.
But you're a beautiful killer.
Like that interval jump is really dramatic.
Yeah.
You know, and
Love
the
it.
fact that it goes down first and then comes up, like that was like, okay, we don't need to be like super technical. It doesn't need much. That interval jump is enough.
I mean, that lyric's just,
Oh yeah.
it's great.
It's great. It's great. And again, it's just one of those things. Don't overthink it. It's a great lyric. Can it be better? Maybe, maybe not. Who cares? If it's that whole adage, if it sounds good, it is good. So then, I mean, again, Sammy just sounds so good.
But you're a beautiful killer. Bound to chains, I cling desperately.
And then we decided to add these guys just as a bit of a helping hand.
But you're a beautiful killer. Bound to chains.
Which really is just, it's just the...
Well, you gotta emphasize that.
Yeah,
That's,
absolutely.
Like, that's it just needs it.
Killer.
Man, you know what? What's better than one Sam?
4 Sams. 5 Sams.
5 Sams.
100%.
You know what's better than 5 Sams? More Sams.
More, all the more Sams.
Yeah.
And then these guys. So let's get some context for these guys too.
Irredeemable sinner.
We wanted those top 2 notes to just kind of like fly out into the abyss, right? So that's why, you know, there's a bit of the everyone's favorite reverb.
Mate, it just looks good.
Do you think you've spent a better $50 in your life? The answer is yes, but I don't want to hear what it is. So I think for me, definitely not. So vocals, that was it. And then we'll come back to these ones. Drums were just kind of like, you know, they were just doing the same. You were just doing the same kind of vibe here, right?
Literally, this song is the same groove the whole way through. Just with some tasty hats.
I think maybe the kick pattern is different.
Yeah, we got, well, just some extra. Sorry, it's not exactly the same groove the whole way through.
It's true.
It's very similar. Very, very similar.
And then we've got the same, you know, sample guy in there.
But we did add in those 16th hats.
That's true.
Like the sample hats.
Yeah, that's true. So if we kind of just break down the drums here for a second.
And apparently claps.
Yeah. So that's huge.
Yeah. That 16th hat, it brings it forward. It just carries that groove through. Because I'm just like, I'm quarters on the
I mean, if we take it out, all of a sudden the whole song slows
that
down.
beer tastes crap.
It does. It doesn't, but it could if it didn't have 16th hats.
note
Exactly. We're such nerds. So yeah, you're right. And then there's there's a couple of claps here too, which were kind of cool. Again, subtle, nothing crazy. And then, you know, if we come down, you know, a little bit more, we've actually got a different bass part. So we clearly made the decision that we were going to get out of sidechain bass territory and just kind of go a little bit more simple, right?
Was this a Lewis Moody special?
It could have been. Friend
I
of
think
ours,
it was.
Lewis Moody, yeah.
Shout outs to Lewis Moody. Let's go. I'm going to keep staying there. Amazing keys player.
Very, very good. 100%. So we've got, that's kind of how the drums and, you know, bass are kind of working together. But if we just solo, you know, this was the Moog, which, you know, super simple. There's a little bit of this guy on, kind of helping with the low end. Subtle, but every little move counts. And then we've got this guy, which is like, I don't know what synth that was. Oh,
So Juno.
lucky for us, it's named Juno.
I was gonna say.
It was a Juno, Tim.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
So super simple, great.
Well, that's just adding a stereo. Like, some people don't like a stereo bass, but I love a stereo bass.
Agreed. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give everyone a little bit more context of how it all kind of comes together. So we had the bass, and then we brought in the synth.
But you're a beautiful killer. Bound to chains, acting desperately, irredeemable sick.
Which is these guys, right?
I love it.
Again, we've got the Juno up top. We've got the Prophet 6, which is sitting over there.
And then Lewis's whatever organ sound that was.
Yeah.
You kind of like, you chopped that, didn't you?
So that's the Juno again. So nice. Prophet. Individually are cool, but together,
Mighty.
so fun. And then this, I don't know how we chopped this up or why. It's not following, but again, let's get some context with the rest of.
Bound to chains, acting desperately, irredeemable sinner. Telling tales like
And then we come to these little whisper guys. Again, can't remember where that was either.
DX7
Could be.
vibes?
Super dark. And not playing the entire progression, just is coming in.
Who knows where some of these instruments come from?
bound to chains, acting desperate.
Let's jump to here.
I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around. I feel it. But you're beautiful.
Okay, so we had that, and we were like, okay, we know what the chorus is now. Like we know how big it is. We know the width, the depth, the height, frequency-wise. And then I think that the hardest thing as a producer is to know when to stop. And clearly at this point,
We didn't know
we
at
were
all.
we were like, it needs more.
Yes.
So we brought in these arcs.
Not because you stole, but you're a beautiful
Which-
killer.
Isolated. And so this is a great example of committing.
Yeah.
Clearly in Pro Tools, in Ableton, we've gone, added a verb, and we're just gone print.
Yeah, this is a Prophet 6.
I think this is fun. But also can be something that can very quickly take up a lot of room in the mix. So, Tony did a really great job at just kind of...
At dealing with all of our crap.
Oh, I agree. But kind of tucking them in. And then let's jump into some of George's guitars.
Yes, which are very subtle. This was an interesting one because we were in love with these guitars, I remember.
yeah.
And Tony brought them down a fair bit,
Yeah.
which I actually think was a really good call.
It was the right move.
because they make the chorus quite different.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I really like that when we play this song live.
Yeah.
Geordie's like that guitar part's a lot more
Yeah, it was.
front and
Totally,
center.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a synth player. We've got a guitarist, and so we've got tracks going in the background. So the synth's there, but this guitar part is
It's really, really
it
fun.
comes out live, but it's a subtle one.
Let's have a little listen with it isolated and then in with everything else. Then in context.
Telling tales like an innocent beast. I feel it coming around. I feel
Yeah, it's just following that progression.
Yeah.
it coming around. I feel it, but you're a beautiful
It's very cool.
killer.
It's so like Radiohead, I reckon.
So sweet. You're so
And is actually quite a tricky guitar part, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember in the studio it took a while, like because he basically, I think it was one of those things where he came up with a part and then my composer brain went wild.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, no, this line.
But because you're not a guitarist, you didn't understand how would it be adaptable to guitar. And he's there going, come on, man.
Yeah, come on. I'm like, just do it.
But
just do what I hear in my head.
He's such a good player. It was just, it was a breeze.
He made it happen.
So in terms of instrumentation, we're kind of there. But, so, I mean, how do you even start with character in a song? So, I don't know where it was that I heard.
Sorry.
Do you want a top up?
Ah, there are top ups.
There are top ups. Your can's right there.
I'm going to finish my drink and then I'll have another one.
I don't know where the decision was made to go scouring through the abyss of our collective hard drives and find some samples, but
I remember very well, actually. I'd become obsessed with space.
Okay.
And
because you're a space cadet.
I will be after this beer.
100%. Yeah, everyone knows.
Mate, this is actually a beer that gets better.
It does.
The more you drink it. Because
Yeah,
some beers really go downhill.
This is definitely getting better.
It's one of my frustrations with a lot of beers is that you just don't like the aftertaste mixed with the new taste. I don't know what the technical term is. I'm not a beer aficionado, but this is actually sitting in the pocket.
Yeah, it's not too heavy, and yeah, again, they've nailed the bitterness on it.
Would you say that it's kind of like you're jamming out with your band?
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to describe that beer, I'd probably say I'm in a garage. Like
you are in a garage.
Practicing.
We're in a garage right now.
This is true.
This whole world is
for those that don't know, this is just a fitted out garage, but they could be fake bricks. No one will know.
Nah, it's ruined.
So you were obsessed with space.
So yes. So I became quite obsessed with outer space, and I found these archival recordings from NASA.
Yep.
And of the Apollo missions, because if anyone is not aware, there were multiple Apollo missions. Apollo 11 was the one that went to the moon. Apollo 10 nearly got to the moon. They could have probably landed, but they didn't. And so there's all these other missions, and they also went to the moon again and again and again. I don't want to talk conspiracy theories. It doesn't matter because they recorded this footage. And you were, I remember you were like on this thing of like, it's like needs to be like all this background interest.
Yeah. 100%. Like I'm huge on the things that you don't necessarily hear but you feel, and it's the things that if you mute them, you go something's missing, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I think it's like it's the same with effects on a vocal. It's like what's reverb, what's delay, what's pitch shift. Don't really know, but it's the culmination of everything together that's making you feel a certain thing. I think this is huge.
This could be my favorite thing in this track, maybe.
I think so. I think it was really like there were four kind of tracks where we brought, I don't know how long, these probably hours worth of footage, brought it in and then started to chop it up.
Yeah, you can see that we kind of, I mean, we went ham on
the editing for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of we kind of used some character lines, but
let's have a little listen to how this, the first time that we hear the, as we call them, the NASA men, but clearly ends up looking like NASA men, which
is genius.
Ends up just sounds like a Thai curry.
I mean, come on.
I'll just
who at home,
one beef.
Who NASA out there on your YouTube screen doesn't name their tracks weird things? I think what we've done thus far has been very, very,
we're not
very,
up to
very
like
vanilla.
Audio 31, Audio 32. We're doing well. So let's have a listen to the beef nusserman and see where
what they were eating for their space dinners. With reverb, of course. It's out there, guys. It's
so in context.
This is free. These are free recordings, by the way. I really hope they're free recordings and we didn't say that.
No, they're free. So again, it's like you don't really notice it. These guys here.
Things don't work out because you stole. But you're beautiful.
I remember loving this.
Sounds like R2D2, man. It's like radio weird.
But it's just the perfect little transition.
Yeah. Apparently there are whales in space.
But particularly that last one kind of sets up the chorus.
Things don't work out because you stole, but you're a beautiful killer.
Right, because it's like the whole production is kind of being big, coming down to a small point, and then exploding again, right?
Yeah.
So
Good sound effects.
very, very good. So then we jump into the chorus, which we've just gone through. So verse 2, I mean, there's really not a lot to talk about apart from, I mean, both of us are huge Max Martin fans, obviously.
The biggest. I did a thesis on Max Martin in university. Yeah.
I mean, one of his bread and butters is in the second verse, just add one new element, right? Which was a vocal thing. So if we go, verse 1, for example,
Pollute our veins with your poison.
and then we jump into verse 2, it's practically the same thing.
Sharp, but your voice is complete.
Drums, bottom out.
With evil eyes and everything sweet. Devils do cry when angels are free. Speeches and
But then you get to a point where you go, okay, the song does need to evolve. The song does need to evolve in some way, right? So classic Max Martin trick.
Max Martin came into the studio
He
and
definitely didn't. So we just added these little guys, which is just some R's from Sammy.
that's right.
Side change.
With some LFO tool.
And in context.
speeches and act in your mind to bleed. Wicked
Which again is, another great production trick is because the vocal is the most important part of a song, where in the melody can you find a gap where you can actually add some sort of information? Because adding too much information around the vocal is going to take, obviously, attention away from the vocal.
I mean, what's that whole A-B, that
Totally.
counterpoint idea if you're a composer, of putting in something that's adding to but not taking away from the melody. That is still melodic in itself.
Totally. And there wasn't really much that we added, apart from, these guys.
wicked choose your
But there were a couple of little bass fills which were really kind of fun.
This was Lewis. It's funny because we kind of really set him loose on this track.
Yeah.
And then we
Just cut it up.
yeah, we cut it up a lot. But it was just these
also-
perfect little fills that he played that just really worked.
We also brought in this little 808 kick as well.
That 808, spoiler alert, is a feature a little later on, which you've probably heard if you've heard the track.
So that's that little moment where it's just a little subtle kind of It's just it's small changes.
I mean, and that's the thing I like about verse 2s a lot, is that you can really kind of open it up.
Yeah.
And you've given people this information,
Yeah.
and you can then start to really expand on it. And I think something that, this is where the crazy or the jammy vibe meets with the the poppy or kind of keeping things in the pocket, not letting it get too loose, but you're kind of wrestling with this. And I think often I think something that you do well is I'm kind of oh yeah, I'll try this and da 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 da, and then you kind of go yeah, but it's you're drawing it back to a manageable sound.
I'm just slowly
Hurting me.
cutting you down. That's to the point where you go, man, I feel great about myself. but meanwhile, I'm we're definitely not going to end up using that. But to be fair, you were the genius of the bridge, which we will get to in a second. All right, so let's jump into Chris. Let's jump into chorus 2. So
Poor Chris.
6 point.
Sorry, Chris.
Christmas. I love him.
I do too. I haven't seen him in years.
You know that he's playing with Sting now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's a freak.
It's insane.
Of course he's playing with Sting.
It's just so
We like you, Chris. Come back.
We
Come
love
back to
you.
Australia. And bring Sting with you.
He'll be here.
Shout out to Sting.
So chorus 2, same deal. not a huge difference with chorus 1. You know what? Something that we totally forgot to talk about is the B section of the chorus. So
Yep.
obviously we've got the main melody. We've got the same thing with a different lyric here. And then the harmony changes.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
But then it's like, okay, what are we going to do vocally?
Yeah. For all you songwriting kids out there, this is, I mean, as you would already probably be aware, or for you, those of you that don't, this is what you would call like an AABA chorus. So
Totally.
you've gone idea, melody idea, same melody idea, different melody,
Deviation,
idea. Wow, this beat's hitting me. And then we're back to our original melody idea. So
Yeah, so
AABA.
the hardest thing with that, with an AABA is like, what is going to be that B? Because especially if you've got a strong A, because you feel like you need to at least meet it or beat it. But I think with the way that we kind of balance this, so we go, okay, that the A, the beautiful killer line was so strong. Let's not try and outdo that. Let's just try and assist it in a way where we can just kind of make it shine.
You know you're going to go away. You're going to go away and sample some beers, and then you're kind of going to come back home and drink the same beer.
Or a
It's
different
better.
beer. So in terms of, the B section, this is what we got.
I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around.
And then in context with the harmony.
Girls like an innocent beast. I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around. I feel it coming around. I feel it, but you're a beautiful.
And then obviously end with the same A.
Yeah. And points to those who heard the cowbell there as
This
well.
was a real fun little thing, which you may not remember. We
section
added
cowbell.
a high octave. Which is
I
just
did not remember that at all.
which is just Sammy just pitched up an octave and just kind of blended.
Slow taste, but you're so
I'm gonna bring it up a bit.
Man.
slow taste, but you're so sweet. You're such a shock.
I completely forgot that.
So he was fun. Again, he's just like another little addition. So
That's definitely not a he. I hope it's not a he, because that's a boy with a lot of pain.
So I'm just going to, so we got the R's, we've got the octave, we're into chorus 2, we've got the same AABA, just going to make sure that there's nothing new here. I mean, this second, if we just kind of go through the bass and drums here for a second.
We did add some extra bass notes in this chorus, as you can see down there. Little fills, little
and
entry
also
points.
some maracas.
What?
Yeah.
What?
These guys.
Huh.
Right?
Oh, right, of course.
So-
What we heard, just to backtrack, in verse 2, it's very much a hip-hop thing, like taking the beat out, bringing the beat back in. And it kind of felt like it added that interest in verse 2, that, just literally taking out, bringing back in. And that maraca, that 16th maraca, really pushes it along. Like,
It does, yeah.
It's that simple thing, again, of like adding in some material. But it kind of was nice to sort of, chop the verse in half and kind of go, the first half is sort of this, like, I feel like it's like we're breaking down because we've had this epic chorus, and then we're sort of going to rebuild again.
Yeah,
We
agreed.
will rebuild. And yeah, that's...
It totally
is.
worked. So in terms of like, some of these bass fills, some of these guys here, it's just like, it's so subtle, but it really helps that chorus just move along a little bit more.
Mate. Shout out to Lewis Moody.
Nothing crazy, man. love that. I love how the drums finish here.
Oh yeah.
This film.
No worries, mate.
That was very good.
You probably fed me beer.
Probably. Okay.
Or you'll probably like had to sift through me playing like massive drum fills
Yep. And just
until I was tired enough.
cutting and just throwing everything to the curb. So then we get to the infamous bridge. So I think at this point it was like, okay, so we know what the verse is, riff based, starts on the Juno, comes in with the guitars.
Yes.
Then the chorus is just kind of like lifted it to like another level again.
Stratosphere.
So you go
Outer space, would you say?
100%, and then you would go, okay, so like, okay, are we gonna try and beat it again, or are we just gonna try and like, how are we gonna approach this? So we finish up with that chorus.
Yes.
So again, there's not a huge development in terms of, you know, verse 1, verse 2, chorus 1, chorus 2. Then we get to the bridge and we go, okay, so how are we going to approach this? Because the verse was obviously very much riff based, and then great melody.
Yeah. So where do you go?
Where do you go? And particularly with that chorus as well, you go, okay, well, do you go down the road of like trying to make a bigger bridge, a hookier bridge? It became very evident that it was like, let's not try and outdo anything. Let's just try and give a different spin on what the chorus already is.
Yes, but that took us a long time to work out.
Totally did.
Well, because you kind of like,
It totally did.
I remember I never felt comfortable. Like after the chorus, I was like, the third, if we have another third chorus that sounds the same as these two choruses.
Well, let's give everyone a little bit of context. So this is where we got to, and we were just utterly confused in terms of
oh my goodness,
where to go from here.
Stole the taste, but you're so sweet. You're so.
So
where
what
do you
do?
go? Where do you go when you've made something that's so beautiful?
I agree. I agree. I do remember that feeling of being like, I'd almost want to release a 1 minute 50 song.
Yes.
And just be done with it, because you don't want to, we're not trying to outdo it. We're just.
No. And like, honestly, this was the infamous bridge. Oh my goodness. It took so long.
Yeah.
You say like, yeah, we worked out what needed to happen. That took us maybe like 10 different iterations of like 10 different ideas,
Yeah,
which
it's
was,
true.
you know, it takes time to kind of work up an idea.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of like, nah. So that this song did take us a long time.
We got to a point where we were like, okay, it almost was a decision around, we're going to just go back to what feels good.
Mm.
And what felt good was almost a jam, almost just like a, you know, like, I don't know what else to do here. I'm just going to kind of like play out my frustration and try and just find a strange road.
Yeah, which is what, I mean, you know, when you're playing a live, you know, potentially partially improvised gig, you do jam.
Yeah.
You jam all the time. That's how you find where you're going, is just by jamming. And
So then you jumped back on the kit and you were like, you know what? This is just what feels good. Particularly the kick pattern again, which I know it's probably like, that just sounds like the verse, sounds like the chorus, but it is a different iteration, particularly the kick pattern.
And for those of you that guessed, yes, it's a 3-bar pattern.
It is. So that's going to become really evident when we get down to some of the synths. So we were like, okay, so if we're going to go down the jam road, let's stick with drums. Obviously, it's going to be drum based. And then there was no bass, but what there was just one of the most fun sounding
SKA
synths.
Twigs.
Like just the most craziest little synth ever, which is like, like $150 synth from the 80s, right?
Mhm.
Called the SK1, Casio SK1. For those that don't know, so the Casio SK1 is a synth from the early 80s, I think. It's this little sampler before sampling was kind of cool. And what it had on it was maybe like a 1 second or a 1.5 second sampler where you could sing into it, you could play into it, you could, hold it up to your screaming child, and it would sample whatever sound onto the keyboard.
Yes.
I know that you can do this in Ableton. I know that you can do this in Cubase.
This is the 80s we're talking about.
This is 80s.
This
and
was high tech.
Also the way that the tone of it, like it's like, the way that it kind of like rolls off the top end and kind of makes...
It's like 8-bit kind of like...
It is. It's total.
signature vibes.
And it just like...
Shout outs to Sigur Rós, who we got the idea from.
Yes, very good. Yeah, I mean...
Stolen. Everything is stolen.
That's
stolen.
right. I do remember doing a bit of digging in terms of like how they got that sampled tone of Yonsei. Let's just have a little listen. It's just so interesting.
This was like one of our great inspirations, Sigur Rós.
Yeah.
This was one of those ones where you had found, because I was always like, that sound, there's this sound in like Sigur Rós
that's right.
that you hear in like
100%.
the first early records, like the Bracket album and then Tuck, and there's this sound there and it repeats itself, and
that's
it's
true.
like,
And then we did a bit of digging and it ended up being
the SK1.
back down the 1. Yep. Which is just like, I don't even want to think. I think, man, where do you start? It's so easy to go down the plugin rabbit hole of like, doing this and doing that. But sometimes there is nothing better than just getting a piece of gear that has a particular sound that it only does one thing, and use it for what it's best at.
Yes, it's a character. It's a character.
It's a character thing, because I don't even want to think about how many plugins you would need to get. I don't even know if I could.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what I would use to try and make something sound like that.
So we're like, okay, so we got the drums. We've got the so let's just bring those drums back in. And we've got the drums, and we've got this guy, which was kind of like the basis of the bridge, right?
Nice little 808
and that's
down there.
That's the progression kind of finish there. We're back in with that kind of like offbeat. So then we're like, okay, so we got something. How do we, like, what are we going to do? And I do remember us having a discussion about, okay, well, we need to finish with the final chorus, but we need to finish with the chorus in a completely different way. Like, we can't just go bigger drums, bigger this, bigger that. So we made the decision to go down the synth road. Using the Prophet,
yes,
but before we got to that point, it's almost like we'd made the decision that we were kind of like going to build the chorus from a synth perspective only, but we needed to kind of like, we needed to move everyone in that direction. We almost needed to convince the listener that this was the right decision for the song.
Yep.
So you kind of start to add some ominous, I don't know where we decided to kind of add some of these effects.
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of this was mad scientist mode 5000.
Agreed.
Like, there's like synth rises, synth arpeggios, normal synth parts, bendy synth parts, synth bass, other synth bass.
So then we added these little effects guys. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna solo some of these effects by themselves.
How flushed are my cheeks right now?
No, you're good.
Because I'm feeling this.
You know what?
In a good way.
Actually, I'm gonna keep rolling with these effects, and let's just kind of.
One more tap.
Definitely Primal Tap.
Primal Tap.
So if we kind of add those guys in with the SK1, with the drum.
Don't forget our little Nasserman.
With Nasserman. I love that.
He's a NASA old man.
So I think we need to talk about the Nasserman again here. So really, really fun. So if we go back to the start of this breakdown.
Reported hard dock at 30208. Into this Huntsville Pass separation and turnaround, we will have an Arai aircraft between Huntsville and Hawaii for
That's right. It was like the
no
narrator.
air-to-ground conversation, and will continue to stand by for any conversation. Apollo control at 3 hours 48 minutes. Tenerife has LOS.
So again, it's got nothing to do with the song, but it's like it's all character.
Hard dock at 30208. Separation and turnaround. We have an Arai aircraft between Huntsville and
We've got to find a way to get back to the final chorus. So I'm sure we did an iteration of just like going straight back in, and it didn't feel right. So we kind of started to subtly
Interesting harmony.
And so that's all that we needed to kind of do the transition to the point where we knew that the one was going to come back in.
So we used some of the chorus chords that have they some of them, I don't know if it works in this weird way. It kind of
it totally works.
There's like a nice drone in the SK1 and the kind of outline of the chords.
It actually it made the harmony super, super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you know what else is interesting?
What is interesting, Joel?
Top-ups.
Okay, tell me about top-ups. What are they?
So top-ups are great things in life where you run out of something great.
Yes.
And you realise that beside you have more of... Do you want to pass me your glass?
I'll pass you my glass.
Banks, I mean, again, you have no idea that we were going to be doing this, but shout out because you guys are one of my absolute favourites.
Woo! Thanks, Banks.
So we get back to the chorus, but also in terms of vocals, we're like, okay, well, maybe we can bring in that B section from the chorus, right? With the new harmony. So actually, let's just like kind of take everything off here for a second. So the B section is the B section of the chorus, and it's just, you can see the automation there is just kind of like scooping up. I mean, in terms of plugins, there's just a little bit of time adjuster, the ML4000, which if you don't know by now is probably my all-time favorite plugin. LA2A.
You literally say that every year.
I do. I do. It's
not
because
the ML4000, but you literally say my all-time favorite plugin. Is it something different?
No, it's not. It's like it's my all-time. So we got these guys that are just like, you know, they're just like they're kind of introducing, you know, the chorus idea again. So then we get to well, actually, just before the synths, we've got these little 8-bit, kind of guys that are just kind of like
what?
Like the idea was, okay, we're gonna go for a chorus that in essence kind of sounds like the end of the world. Like it's everything's kind of like breaking up. The drums are kind of breaking up, and you just get completely and utterly overtaken by just a wall of synths.
Yeah, it's like a departure chorus. It's like we cannot reiterate the same thing again. We have to go somewhere different.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Very different.
We almost wanted this song to kind of like just blow up in the end, right? It's like make it feel like it's the end of the world. So the drums start to disintegrate, the synths start to kind of like take over everything, and just kind of create this ridiculous synth wall. So obviously we hadn't got to the synths yet, so we're like, okay, we need to create a bit of a feeling of manic, essentially, which is all these guys. Right, so in context, they're just kind of adding a bit of a...
I feel it coming around. 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 I feel it.
Right, so they're just kind of like, they're there to kind of like build anticipation to the fact that something's coming.
Yes.
So then we've already talked about, the role that these guys here are doing, which are kind of starting to introduce the fact that we're going back to the chorus. So they're there. And then the SK1, again, is just continuing to do his little, 3-bar progression. And then it came time to do the transition. So the only way to kind of get this across is that I'm going to play the SK1, some of these effects. I'm going to mute the up for now. I'm going to come back to him. I'm going to include that rise. And we're going to go just with these guys. So these are all these new synths, which we're going to break down in a second, and the bass. So with these tracks selected, you can understand how we've gone from, in essence, one world to another. This is from the breakdown. That's the synth wall, right? So we're going to go through kind of, bottom down in terms of what everything was doing. So we got to the bass. The bass was really fun. Again, we've just got a bit of Voice of God. So the mono guy, but it's really the stereo.
Yeah, that was
with all the top end
as well, wasn't it?
And together.
Yeah, this was such like, in my like composery brain, it was like, there needs to be as much glissando, aka bend, as possible. Like it was just.
Then we had
dissonance.
the organ guy just kind of like going through there. And then I remember you setting up shop on my table and just kind of going one by one and creating this little guy. And then when you add the bass back in, so, I mean, just like the way that it all kind of like, you know, like it's almost like that THX thing from Village Cinemas back in the day. Like it's just like down to this center point.
I was actually in that entry point into the chorus.
Yeah.
I was probably directly inspired by that because the synths all go from like different places to right in.
Yeah.
It's this cool like out of focus to in focus kind of thing.
And then this rise, which just is literally just going up the entire time, just like creating just an insane amount of energy. And then this little ARP guy.
It's a whole other song in there. It's another universe, mate.
Let's add these guys back in. Just absolute craziness.
Delition.
So, and then also George just kind of bringing in, you know, that part back in, which again, by that point, it's like there's really no room left. It was kind of just there for Tony to be like, look, if you can fit it in there, great. And then we're back to the Nasserman. And I remember at this point, we ended up, again, we're going manic, we're going energy. So we just ended up just double speeding everything, right?
Yeah.
Again, in context. Also, this little guy here. So once you kind of, you know, we've kind of picked apart everything. Once you put it all back in together with the vocals, with that chorus line, with the, you know, coming around, the drums, we get this transition.
I feel
that was it. At that point, we were like, okay, we're done. So that felt like the ultimate way to finish the song. Take it from the inception of that little riff on the Juno, right?
Yep.
Which, again, sounded ridiculous at the start. Sounded like a Superman theme. Add a verse that works, come into that chorus, and then hit that second chorus, which so many of us can, get ourselves in, kind of back into a corner where you get to the end of that second chorus and you go, what on earth are we going to do here to, finish this song off?
A great problem to have when you've written a great chorus.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I get it. Sometimes it takes freaking ages. This song took a lot of time to crack. But we finally got there. So that's a wrap. I feel like we've gone through everything. I mean, shout out to Banks, beer of the day, Woo! East Coast IPA, jam out with my band, Banks. Thanks to Banks.
Thanks, Banks.
Thanks to Timmy Coghill for jumping in on today's episode.
I'm just here to drink the beers.
And also thanks to Sammy for letting us open up this session again and just dive in 7 years later. It's been a real treat. And as always, guys, until the next one, stay thirsty.
Ah.